Mr. Vizier had earned only 5 town denarii, which was not enough to build anything. Wasting no time, he ventured forth in the name of King Baldwin once again. To his surprise, he was immediately greeted by the prophecy woman. She warned him of the goblin warlord, Gorzog. Mr. Vizier dreaded this formidable foe. After deciding his fate, something interesting happened. A group of court mage assistants went missing in the woods, and a search party found a sinister book titled 100 Otherworldly Wisdoms from Friendly Eldritch Spirits. He decided to defile the tome, gaining 7 permanent morale. This synergized perfectly with King Baldwin's unique talent, further increasing troop damage. The first difficult situation arose in week 25. The goblin forces overwhelmed his peasants, so he immediately established a militia camp to bolster the town's defenses. Defeating this tough wave yielded an ugly apple. This meant depleted production plots would now summon toads onto the battlefield. It was a strange sight, but watching them jump around provided a morale boost to Mr. Vizier himself. He smiled. The first time the trader arrived in town, Vizier bought an archery range and a bunch of spells. He wanted to have devastating ranged units behind a strong front line, and he liked spells. As the forest began to freeze, the lumberjacks struggled. Ever the benevolent leader, Vizier chose to allow them more rest by introducing shifts. Later, upon issuing a tax decree, he received 250 units of flour. Unknown to him, this decision would help him greatly down the road. The goblins were many, but he defeated them easily. Large or small, they were all slaughtered. To strike true fear into the hearts of his enemies, Vizier decided the slaughter needed to be more brutal. He began producing madmen, bringing pure chaos to the battlefield. Then came a messenger from a king in the forest, questioning Vizier's authority. He wondered if the madmen in town were messing with his head. Talking mushrooms? Surely this was a dream. Yet there they were defending the town. Between jumping frogs, madmen, and now walking mushrooms, he worried things were getting a little out of hand. Around week 164, needing more gold, he remembered the free flour he had. He could sell it at a 1-to-3 ratio. On the most dreaded day, it was raining. The goblin warlord Gorzog finally approached the walls. Vizier almost felt bad for him. The warlord was a total loser and lasted only a few seconds on the battlefield. But the rewards were legendary indeed. According to the prophecy woman, his enemies were growing stronger, and a new foe appeared on the horizon, Volkar the Gold Hoarder, a dragon. This made Mr. Vizier tremble deep down. Townsfolk didn't need to know that, however. It was time for celebrations, which naturally meant temporary, harder working conditions. A giant wearing a mask resembling the sun induced terror among the men. Just as predicted, the enemy forces grew bigger and scarier by the week. With decent planning and a courageous heart, Mr. Vizier and his soldiers held the line. The sight of madmen charging the enemy and then running aimlessly was truly a spectacle. The trader eventually offered blueprints for a crystal castle, which produced a unit called a Patricius. This unit looked incredibly strong, and Vizier wanted to give it a try. In week 253, a group of merchants appeared at the gates. Unable to say no to artifacts, he offered them favorable trade conditions. The rewards this time were incredible. A hero statue that could upgrade units, and a legendary spell that permanently increased troop health. By week 287, he noticed he was running out of basic production buildings. The battles were getting weirder, goblins riding pigs alongside goblin casters and giant crabs. "Dragon!" cried the townspeople. Finally, the time had come. Vizier had a feeling this battle would test his resolve. At certain points, Volkar took off and breathed fire upon the battlefield. The smell of burning flesh filled the air. It was a horrible time to be a soldier. Quickly, Mr. Vizier ordered the production of exploding carts. Fighting fire with fire was the only way. As soldiers were slaughtered and the future looked grim, Vizier formulated a plan. He calculated the exact moment Volkar would take flight for his most devastating breath attack and turned the dragon into a sheep just before he could. "Yes!" he cried, though the flight was only delayed and the dragon eventually wiped out his soldiers again. The dragon was finally defeated. With that, Mr. Vizier achieved his first ever victory. He returned to the kingdom, this time with plenty of denarii. He learned that the duck guy was actually named Gustav and, as an advisor, would provide a 5% bonus to production. For his first major investment, Vizier acquired more building upgrades. Once again, it was time to prepare for the journey ahead.